Now I'm dancing on a volcano, bare feet over fire and stone. Yeah, I've lived through hell, but I'm not alone. The edge don't scare me, I've already been burned. Every step I take now is a lesson I've learned.
Dancing on a Volcano, as Dean tells me, is episode 14. So it's season 2, episode 5, Dean? Is that correct? I think so. Something of that nature. Okay. I'm here with Aminah Yusuf.
Yeah.
Aminah and I met in a church basement.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. I love you. Thank you for coming out.
I love you
to
too.
Spend time with us.
I love you too.
Yeah. You know, we were talking a little bit in the room before we came in here, just kind of shooting it a little bit. And,
right.
And you know, and I said, you know, that light needed. There we go. I'm a little bit dim now. I'm a little blurry. So, just as long as I'm not too dim up here, I'm all right.
Well, you know. CRS.
That's why we got editors. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the really cool thing about this, you know, that I found about the show is that, you know, my interface with people, I mean, I've had people on this show that I've known for 30 years.
Right.
And then once we started having a conversation, found out all kinds of things I didn't know about them or their background or their history or whatever. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I thought I knew you. You know what I mean? And find out all kinds of things. Now, you know, when we share recovery together, you know what I mean? We get snapshots of people. Right. We get, you know, an interface. Luckily, we get to know people at a deeper level, and that's a wonderful thing. But we also get just pieces. Right. And slowly we start to piece that together. And, you know, we get a perception of who somebody is, but we don't get like a deeper level. Right. And the really cool thing about this has been that in the process, you know, I come away out of this thing with like a way cool, deep understanding of people and their background and their history. But what we also talked about is that, you know, I get to pick people that I enjoy, that I want to be around, right? And you have a warm, friendly way about you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I know that isn't always easy when you're like us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a symbol of, you know, a lot of self-reflection and a lot of self-worth.
Yeah.
And at any given moment, you know, I'm the craziest one in the room, right?
I don't know. It might be me too.
So let's talk a little bit about, are you originally from Delaware or?
No, I'm originally from Philadelphia.
Oh, so you're a Philadelphia girl.
Yeah.
Okay. What part of Philly?
Mount Airy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the bougie people. Whenever I say Mount Airy, it's like, oh, you're from Mount Airy.
Oh, Mount Airy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so for those of you that don't know, that aren't from the area, you know, it's one of the nicer areas in Philadelphia for sure. So, siblings, brothers and sisters?
I'm my mother's only child.
Okay.
My dad was a truck driver.
Okay.
And he was married when my mother had me. So he had 2 children. And then there's some other ones. I met my brother. It's funny. I met my brother when I was about 36, 34, somewhere around there. And he was 10 years older than me.
Okay. And
funny story, I had moved my kids to New Jersey. I built a house there, my first husband. And we lived in a, you know, little neighborhood in Wilmington. I mean, not Wilmington, Williamstown.
Okay.
And my aunt called me, and she said, I have your brother here. And I was talking to him, and he was telling me how, you know, that he was from Jersey. And he was like, I said, well, where do you live? He says, I live in Williamstown. And then as I'm talking to him on the phone, my nieces are like, we know these kids. Who are these kids? Here these girls, my nieces, were friends with my next door neighbor's daughter. I had seen them. They've played with the kids. Because at that time. And never knew.
Wow.
So find out he lives like, we're in these little neighborhood, these little, communities. So he's in the one behind me because he's like, I live in Forest Hills. I said, Forest Hills, that's like around the corner from me.
Wow.
And so we met the next day because he was taking his kids to a concert in Philly, and that's why he dropped by my aunt's house. And he had a custom van, and I had a custom van, almost the same colors. And I had seen his van in like the shopping center, stuff like that, because Williamstown's really small. And I was like, I've probably have been standing right next to you sometime and didn't even know.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we got closer. And then it's funny because I think when I got clean, I kind of separated myself from everybody. And then we moved and it just got real distant. And I just got back in contact with him like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was trying to give him a kidney, but my own health problems, blood pressure, stuff like that, they said I wasn't a candidate. And he hung in there for some time, and he just passed away 2 years ago.
Sorry for your loss.
On his 72nd birthday, I think. And it was funny because he really he was such a character. And so it's funny because his daughter's name was Kylisha. My son's name is Kyle. And his other daughter, Carla, looks just like me. And it was uncanny about how just genealogy just is so strong, and just there's this thing that is beyond understanding how you are connected to people.
Well, you got to think that whole nature or nurture thing, what I mean? Like the custom vans, you know what I mean?
I know. It's
you
just
know what I mean? You go, wait a minute.
Out of all of the
like
things,
how all the things you could be driving, you know what I mean? Like same.
Yeah. And
so.
I knew my dad from from birth, where he met my dad when he was 18. So they had like a little rocky relationship because, he's like, what I'm going to do with you now? Like that,
Right,
I'm adult now, but they,
man.
they went through some things. We both sang. It was just a lot of similarities and things that, I'd never been able to connect with as, having a sibling at all. So that was pretty cool.
Now, your dad was a truck driver. Mom, stay-at-home mom, or did she work?
No, Mom was a single mom. She worked like 2-3 jobs. I kind of inherited that from her. I don't think I've ever worked less than 2 jobs. She has that hustle gene, and I got that. And she's, pretty independent. She left me with my my grandmother a lot, and I was very, very close to my grandmother. My mother was a very strict, and I always joke about her being mommy dearest, like wake you up in the middle of the night if the dishes aren't done, just beat you because the towels aren't hung right. I'd have whelps from like one arm all the way down my leg. And back in the 70s, we wore those little blue gym suits. I don't know if you remember that. I don't know if you. And my legs. And I'm like, where was child services when I was growing up? But I guess they just, at that time. Well, at that time, they could beat you at school. Like they could hit your arms or paddle you and stuff like that.
I think the.
Corporal punishment was a lot more.
Things have changed for sure.
Yeah.
Things have changed for sure.
Yeah.
And I think lack of involvement by society and government led some children to sustain abuse far above and beyond, and the pendulum swings.
Yeah, and then it swung too much, I feel.
Right, in the other direction now?
Yeah, because
right,
then they gave kids too many freedoms, and I see a lot of, in the work that I do, I see a lot of kids running the household. And it's a lot for a lot of different reasons too. Because there's no book to being a parent, other than Dr. Spock's book from the 70s, 60s, and 70s. You it's trial and error sometimes. Like you just try to do the best you can with your kids, and try to understand them as much as possible, and deal with them, And it's funny because you will have a family with several kids, and they're like, "Well, mom loved you more than me," and but really, you gotta love your kids different because each kid has that love language, whatever it is, and you have to help them understand that if I gave you this that I gave the other one, you wouldn't want it because that's not what you're interested in, or I gave him time because that was important to him, and where it's gifts, So
I just recently learned the terminology and the
about the
concept
love language.
Yeah, somebody used it in a conversation with me, and I was like, so I went back and started doing a little bit of reading and familiarity, and realized that people are receptive to love and give love in different ways, and there have probably been situations where I gave the wrong kind of love to others, and also was not receptive of the love I was receiving, only because it wasn't in alignment with
what your belief
my belief is, or my sensitivity to is. So, it kind of changed perspective a little bit for me, because it's gotten me back to looking at situations where, I probably was receiving love from somebody in a way that they knew how to give it,
right.
but it didn't register with me. And later on I go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, I see that now. They love me. They just didn't love me in a way that I understood was the way this is the way they articulated.
Right. And it's funny because when my first marriage, and I'm grateful for all the experiences that came with that. And I always said that, like, we loved each other, but we loved each other in two different languages, and what he couldn't hear me when I was expressing what I needed to feel loved.
Right.
But he just had what he had,
right.
And when we got divorced, I said,
do you think he didn't have the capability of being able to express the love language that you needed to receive to feel whole?
Yeah.
Right.
And he needed a lot of prompting to do so,
Right.
and I think that, he's a recovering person as well. And he was just waking up. You know what I mean? Like that was in 2000, 2001. And no, it was 2002. Because it was after 9/11. Yeah, so it was 2002. And just, we tried counseling, we tried, and it just wasn't working. And I was coming alive myself in my journey. And it was hard because, I met somebody who spoke my language, made me fall in love. And being in a marriage where you're the caretaker, and me learning that that wasn't who I wanted to be. And I think that was what happened in our relationship. It was things that I just wasn't willing to accept anymore. There was things that, like, I needed, and he couldn't give it because that's just not who he is. And he wasn't a bad person. He just really was not the person for me.
I think people, I think for me, right, I say people, but let's keep it on me, that I didn't really understand the value of compatibility in relationships earlier on. You know what I mean? Like, there's that old saying that love cures all, or love is everything. And, and I do believe that there's some merit to that, but I do also believe that, sometimes love won't always cure incompatibility.
And sometimes you can take love as far as it can go.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, living in Philly and Mount Airy, right? You know what I mean? You said, you have, family from your father's side of the family, right? And then...
Well, really, I don't know, just a little bit, like that aunt, and, because back in that time, even when my father passed away in 1991, and his wife is walking me around the funeral saying, "This is Jack's other daughter," like whispering
really?
it. These people had seen me at family reunions and stuff that he would pop me into every so often. So they knew who I was, and I looked like him. So it was, but it was just that in that time, that was the time. That was in the 60s. And my dad was old enough to be my mom's father. So he was like, it's funny once you learn the truth about how your parents meet, or, that kind of thing, that it it just changes your perception, you know.
Well, let's talk about that. How did your parents meet? Like, what was the truth in that?
Yeah, I think part of the truth was that my dad was friends with my great aunt's husband. They both were tractor trailer drivers for A&P back then.
I remember A&P back in the day. I don't know if they're still around or not. But,
And somehow or another, you know, he was I guess he was an operator. He was a, you know, truck driver. He had girlfriends, you know, probably a lot of places. But he got caught with me, you know. And my mom always used to romanticize it, you know, oh, you were built out of love and, you know, all this other stuff. And I'm like, you know, I had a very hard perception of my mom. And I don't want to say the word hate, but it was an anger in me and a resentment that drove me to a lot of things. And once I started to really see the realities within my life, it just changed what I wanted to do and where I always wanted to be something. My mom was very, she was stuck in fantasy a lot. Like she wanted things from me, and I believed that she wanted them so bad it was like no matter what. You know, and a lot of the stories that, like, she used to clean people's houses, and, you know, she told me about this one house. I remember this story where this woman had, like, this white shag fluffy carpet all throughout her house, and she was cleaning, you know, and she wanted that kind of life for me. You know, and like she was like, I was always a chubby kid, so it was, you know, she's doing everything to get me to lose weight, and, you know, it just didn't happen because now I know I was eating my feelings, you know, plus just, you know, culturally, you know, you ate when you were happy, you ate when you were sad, you ate, you know, you ate.
Can relate to that. 100%.
So just being able to, you know, get myself to a place where understanding, like with them, that she was in whatever relationship she was in, it went, I mean, it was kind of like my grandparent, my father, was disowned my mom because she was, you know, pregnant out of wedlock, you know, to a married man, like, you know, but then I end up being the apple of everybody's eyes. I was the first grandchild, and just, you know, my grandfather, you know, he loves me to death. I loved him. And I'm glad that I had that kind of relationship with my grandfather.
Right.
Because the other men in my life weren't very aspiring. I was raised pretty much with my grandmother and my uncle, who was more like my brother, my older brother, and my other aunt, who was a little older than him, and they were just, you know, they were like my big brother and sister, you know. So just living in that dynamic. But it's funny, I learned how to be a woman from him.
Right.
Because he was gay. He was gay, and then it's funny. I don't know how old I was. I must have been about 10, maybe like 10, 11, when he sat me down and he told me my mom was gay. But he was like a teenager, late teenagers. And life made some sense to me, like who those women were in the house, and like all of the stuff that I had been through with, you know, her girlfriend's kids invading my space and, you know, kind of abusing me too. And, you know, it was just like a lot of things. My mother would always bring me back when she had some kind of family she wanted to complete. So whenever she got into what was a stable relationship where maybe she didn't have to work so much, she'd bring me back. So then I'd become this yo-yo back and forth. But I had my peace with my grandmother.
Right.
You know, she was a very independent and loving woman. And like everybody called her mother, you know, everybody called her mother. When you got to know her, you know, her name, she was Mother. And it was like family meetings where, look, just lead a girl here, and, you know, she's okay. And, you know, and she's like, no, she's my daughter. And, you know, it was like, it was
traumatic.
Yeah, very
sure.
was. It was.
Must have been.
And just being in situations where, like, she would parent me from afar when she, you know, if I did something wrong, I stole something one time. And so she's like, well, if you're a thief, you're a liar, so no one can talk to you.
Mm.
So I'd go like a month without my family being able to talk to me,
Mm.
you know, or engage me, you know. So those, it's funny. I used to be a director of a therapeutic community in a prison,
Right.
and I told them, I said, my mother used to put me on the speaking band. Like that was one of the techniques that we would use is like they couldn't talk.
Mm.
And so my mother would do that. She's like, there's no need for you to talk because everything that comes out your mouth is a lie, you know, and just, you know, just,
Form of like gaslighting.
yeah, it was just really, I was being held strongly accountable for things that I see now weren't that bad.
Mm.
But it also built me into this kind of sneaky person to where I lied and manipulated to avoid her accountability.
Right.
And then I started just doing.
It spilled into other areas too.
Yeah.
Sure.
But with all of that, the only thing she did value was education, you know.
Right. Were you a good student?
I was a good student. I think that in my early years, like when I look back now, I was such a good kid. I was like the teacher's pet. I was, you know, I used to make Mrs. Jones's tea and take her boots off, and you know, and it was kind of like that throughout elementary. Then I went to another school outside of my neighborhood, which is again my uncle. He navigated that for me and made sure I had an uncle that lived in a nicer part of Mount Airy, and I went to school there. So I got a better education than where I was at. But it was a struggle at first because I really wasn't being given the tools that I needed to graduate, although I had like B's and A's, because God forbid I bring anything less in the house.
Yeah.
Then, you know, but it's just that school district wasn't challenging. But going to a high school where it was called Parkway, it was the school without walls. And I was able to go to school, and it was within the community, like in the Germantown community. We'd go to the Y for a class, or we'd go to some other place that, you know, and they would just have that like a Unitarian church. And we would go to all these buildings and walk through the community to go back and forth to class. And you could...
I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
Yeah, you could schedule your own schedule. And my goal was to graduate in 3 years, but I graduated high school in 2. Because I went to that school, then I would go to Northeast High School at night and take night classes. And because then I became so driven that this was what I was going to do.
Do you think, at least in part, you wanted to accelerate your process to getting out so that you could get away from the environment that you were in?
That was
exactly what I mean? You want to change so you can do it faster.
I wanted to get away from Mommy Dearest. And I went, and I was able. I've always been a resourceful person,
right? And
I became independent because of not wanting anything from her.
Right.
And so, and I never wanted to be. My mother, it was a strange dynamic, because I don't know if anybody's ever, you hear this expression like the object of someone's desire or love.
Right.
And I was that object.
Right, but object also means objectificated, so that distances you from the emotional connection. It's more a possession. Right, and a way of validation, right? You know, because it's like, look at my kid, and you know she's doing well because I'm a good parent. You know what I mean? Like,
So being that object, she would do things for me. She wanted to. We talking about the language of love. Right. Her language was things, giving me things.
Right.
And. Right. At the time, I didn't like her. So, you know, if somebody you don't like gives you stuff, you don't want it.
Right.
You know, plus it was, you know, I remember one Christmas, she got me all this stuff, but I was on punishment because I don't think I did well. That report card, I could open them up, but they sat in the dining room until my punishment was over, which was like a month later.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So at that time, she set a tone where she, you know, I didn't want anything from her. You know, but she would thrust her goodness on you, even if
it's funny how, not funny, haha, but funny, ironic, how incompatibility in love languages through blood can lead to an inability to see selection of compatibility in relationships afterwards. You know what I mean? Like,
And
it's like,
and when,
you know?
as a therapist, I do give that assignment to some of my, like really all my patients, because I do that and I do an attachment styles.
okay.
And with that, you get to understand through your dynamic growing up how you, either trauma or experiences, you are drawn to certain people, certain situations, you know, and sometimes, even with your love language is learned, but it may not be functional. So if all you know is to get gifts from someone, then that's what you want, although it's not really what you want.
Right.
So
it's
sometimes
just what
people
you're conditioning.
Exactly. So being able to understand that, and understand, it's helped me, as I started going through that, it helped me to pick better friends.
Right.
To, not be friends with someone, you meet them, you like them, but then as you start to see, they're not the kind of people that you really want around you. And I've learned that because I have a big heart, I have to make sure that I position myself to where I'm safe to give.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because I can't put myself in situations where people will try to victimize me or try to abuse my resources, because a lot of times that is what I got. And that, but again, being that only child, being in that dysfunctional family environment, I wanted people to like me no matter what. So that became a survival skill for me, is people pleasing. But I know that about myself, so I do some things different. I really search myself into, why am I doing this? Is this really something? Just because I can do something doesn't mean that I should.
I've been trying to condition myself away from even the terminology of people pleasing for me. And the reason is because when I peel back the layers deeper, I realize that I'm not people pleasing specifically. That's a symptom of what I'm really looking for, which is validation.
Right.
So I'm validation searching, and the way it comes out is people pleasing. And then what I do is I miss establishing clear and healthy boundaries. And then the next thing you know, I'm setting myself up for resentment, over some things that I did that I shouldn't have done in the first place. And then I'm mad over myself because I'm like, well, why did I even really do that? Like, why can't I just really say no? Like, I knew in advance that this wasn't going to be good. You know what I mean? Why did I, we hear all the time in recovery circles, people will say things like, I'm feeling a certain kind of way. And I often think to myself, like, that's a great place to start, because what you're really saying is, I don't know how I feel. But the second part is, well, then how do you feel, right? Because what it can become is kind of a blanket statement so that you don't dig deeper.
Right.
I hear that a lot.
It's a
People are like, I
cop-out.
feel a certain kind of way. Oh, well, what kind of way is that really? Are you
Well, I really
angry?
don't
Are you
know.
happy? Are you scared? What is this certain kind of way you're feeling? Wow. Now, you had talked about, and let me just rewind for a second. So you talked about love language, right? You know what I mean? But I think you also said, and I'm not quite sure if I caught this correctly, is there some sort of an assessment of articulating, is there like a test that you take that articulates what love language you are? What is that exactly?
Yeah,
What's that called?
It's a survey.
It's a survey.
You can actually go online, and it's the 5 languages of love. You take a survey, and it's interesting because what it does is it helps you to see how it developed, because it talks about you within your child experiences. And the things that, and it helps you to sort it out, and then it'll say to you, that like my dominant one is acts of service. Like my husband now, hopefully, is putting a skimmer on my pool. And I've had to learn to ask for these things from him, because I will either do them myself or get someone else to do it, or be mildly upset with him because he doesn't see it. But when he's told me, all you have to do is tell me and I'll do it. Because now I have a capable man that can do things. And, you know, and depending on, because I used to have like this laundry list of stuff. And while he was on his way back from Baltimore, I was like, I need you to do this, 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 this. And he said to me, he says, like, I need you to not tell me all this stuff because it's overwhelming and I'm tired. So we found a balance now. And like, even like when in the summertime, because I work in a school, we have, you know, he comes up Sunday because we have a barbershop in Baltimore and he lives in the apartment there. And then he'll come up Sunday night and he'll stay till like Tuesday or Wednesday. And that is our time, our quality time. And it's great for us. Like I call him my partner.
Because you get a little bit of distance in your own peace in your own time. And then you get conjoined time.
Because relationships are work. And for me, I value my role as his wife.
Right.
So I have to be on when he's there. You know what I mean? I'm cooking. I'm making sure.
Participatory. Yes,
I'm making sure that he is happy.
Right.
Yeah. And we do things together. We, you know, and then when he's gone, and it's like, okay, all right, I can have like a cheese sandwich now. I don't have to make like this 4-course meal. And you know what I mean? It's just because everything I cook, I send with him.
Right.
But it's like some days I just eating pepperoni and cheese and I'm going to bed because I don't need to cook and I don't know how to cook for one person. So it's then I end up with a lot of food. But it's just, you know, understanding your love language and understanding what it is that makes you tick, because that is the important thing, is understanding how you attach to people, how you need to feel important within a relationships. Because sometimes we can tend to get in relationships, and because we care about these people, we're not fulfilled within that relationship.
Well, okay, so I'll get personal on something. So my wife's a critical care nurse, CCU, ICU, right? So if she's seeing you, you're not in a good spot.
Right.
Right. So she would come home from like, you know, basically like watching somebody pass her in a difficult spot. And then I'd have a man cold and shit. And she'd be like, you can be all right. Take this. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, how come you're not like, you know,
holding my hand and rubbing my head.
You know what I mean? She's like, you know what I mean? Like to her,
you
know, her perspective is completely shifted. So when we have this thing where, so we French press us some really strong coffee between us, right? You know what I mean? And, you know, she come home or, you know, whatever. I get up in the morning and come downstairs and, you know what I mean? And we had this running thing where I realized that there was something for her that actually really, you know, in some way was a love language, and I didn't really realize it. It was like one time there was a minor squabble, something, we were not happy with each other or whatever, and I was like, do you still love me? I said, and she said, I made you coffee, didn't I? And I was like, yeah. She was like, well, there you go then. And I'm like, okay. So now I know if I come downstairs and there's some kind of squabble going on, and we don't squabble really, but and there's no coffee made, uh-oh.
You're still in trouble.
Yeah.
It's not done.
It's not good right now. Like, this is not good.
Done.
You know what I mean? This is not good.
Yeah.
But she'll like, you know, pick up the meds, you know what I mean, from the, you know, because, you know, diabetic and all the other things I am, you know what I mean? I have a nice little handful of meds I take in the morning, and she'll be like, you know, keeping me alive and shit, you know what I mean? Like, that's her love language, you know what I mean? And
well, she's a caretaker by nature. But
yes, but it's not in a way that it doesn't read in a way sometimes for me, you know what I mean? And the beautiful thing about it is that I have developed at least of enough an awareness of it to realize that love language is still acceptable to me. Right? Because for me, the problem that I had is not being able to identify a love language meant that you just didn't love me. Right? You know what I mean? And then what you really come to find out is that this is the way somebody expresses love, and you realize that they love you deeply, But I had to sensitize myself to the fact that this was the way somebody else articulates those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And, you know, and it's been great for me, frankly, because it makes a relationship sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
because without it, I'm just reading it as, oh, this is messed up and this is not. And then the strange thing about it is that you be careful what you wish for. Because what I think in relationships I've had in my life where they were actually pursuing at the love language that I think I identify with as much, which is a little bit more like
Mm-hmm.
touchy-feely, a little bit more like, you know, overly, you know, sweet about it or whatever. I find that shit repulsive, right? So the thing that you think is actually, you know, you identify as your love language,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, honestly, the times in my life where I was most, you know, caught in the grips of a relationship was when somebody basically didn't pay enough attention to me. You know what I mean? And I was just like, why do you not dig me? You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with me? You know? And it's a journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A journey of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thankful for at least having some sensitivity to that now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That, you know,
And it is about willingness to learn too.
Mhm.
Like once you start to know who you are, you
Right.
want to get deeper because there's layers to it.
right.
And the more you think you're okay with something, something will trigger something, and you'll be like, "Whoa, wait a minute! I thought I was okay, but I guess I'm not." So I had to continue to work. That's why it's recovering. It's not recovered. You know.
Now, so let me ask you. So your trade is as a therapist, right? You know what I mean. I believe I heard somebody say at one point, Dr. Yusuf. So you've completed all those years, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it at first wanting to dig deeper on yourself? Like, was the exploration first wanting to dig deeper on others and then realizing you had to dig deeper on yourself, or was it the other way around?
Well, part of the process, like, it's funny. I began counseling in the human service field
Right.
because of my friend. You
Right.
know, I graduated college at 19. I couldn't find a big girl job, and she was working already. She had graduated the year before me. She's like, "I think you'd be good at this. Come on and apply here." And I got a job, you know, working in a home, and I was like 19. I was like 20 years old, and I'm running a group home by myself. Like in Germantown. It was an emergency placement, and she was like, "I think you'd be good with kids." I said, "I can't even stand kids. Like, what are you talking about?" And she, you know, but it was a career that I blossomed in, you know,
Right.
working in group homes and working as a foster care social worker. And, you know, then I started working with the parents of the kids during, like, you know, what they call the crack epidemic starting, and placing, you know, babies, you know, out of crack houses, and then help, you know, working with the parents to get their kids, you know, back, or, you know, all of those things. So it then started to, and at that time is when I would, you know, because I could use and stop and think, you know, there was a time when it was
Right.
sociable. Like,
Right. Yeah, for me too.
you know,
Yeah.
it was, you know, it was a sociable thing. But then as time went on, you know, I started to see where I was sabotaging myself. You know, I was doing things that, you know.
Sabotaging yourself. Say more about that. So, how so? Like, what were you seeing that was, you know, the underlying sabotage, you think?
Doing too much and becoming, trying to do too many things and becoming unmanageable, being impulsive, you know.
Okay.
I know, like, part of my issues is spending, you know, and it's like
Yeah, but you got nice whips.
yeah,
Come on.
I
That's how we
know,
do.
but, you know,
Come on.
but
yeah.
it got to a time where it wasn't the fact. It's kind of like, it's not what you use, it's why you used it, or, you know. So the cars and the, you know, it's like, if I'm feeling bad, there's a jacuzzi in the backyard. You know, if I'm feeling bad, then, you know, I'm buying a Jaguar. If I'm feeling bad, you know what I'm saying? So it was those kind of things that I realized that, like, you can't buy your pain away. You know?
Can you lease it? No. I'm just-
I mean, look, I had the white man's perfect world.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I should have been happy. the husband, the 2 kids, the dog, the house we built,
Right.
and it was funny because it was like a horseshoe street.
Okay.
And every house that had a black person in it, it was the husband and wife that worked. And the houses where the white people worked, just the man worked. And I came to that awareness
Jesus.
because the wife of one of, we all became friends and,
Right.
but she was from England.
Okay.
And she didn't quite understand it. And her husband came from a upper middle class,
Right.
family.
Right.
And she came from, the streets of London. Like
Right.
so she didn't take things for granted, but she had the kids and all that. And she, we were talking and she's like, wow. She says, I didn't realize that, that it took 2 of us to get with one person, and like, she just didn't, she was like, wow, that's crazy. And then the more she looked at it, it was like, there was a woman and she was home. All of the women could stay home with their kids. But my husband and I, we both worked in a whole other state because both of us worked in Pennsylvania. We had to shuffle kids and, all of that. And it was just for us to, have these things. And I remember it's funny. It was a clarifying moment. It was the day that I heard Phyllis Hyman died. And I was sitting on my front steps. And it was just like this vision. I saw it. And it was like the sun was out and it was kind of coming down. It was this beautiful, we had like this retention basin in the middle of that horseshoe. And it was just a beautiful moment. And I just wanted to kill myself. I had everything. And I wanted to kill myself. And I was clean. So that was a time when I realized that no matter what I buy, what I do, there's something still broken in me. And I had to understand. And while I'm working in the addictions and mental health field, I'm aware of what's going on with me. I'm aware that I was always this melancholy kid and was, always depressed and couldn't feel. My mother would do extravagant things, like take me to Disney World. If you looked at the pictures, I was like stunned. Like it was like I was going through the motions, but I was there, but I didn't want to be there with you. It was just too much. And again, that pressure of being the object of somebody's affection, that weighs heavy on you.
Well, sure.
Because even when
your response is indicative to, you don't appreciate what I'm doing for you.
Exactly.
I brought you to Disney World. You better smile, right? You better be happy. Wow.
So it's I don't know. It was just going through all that stuff to understand who I was, to get to I was working in addictions. I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor since '99.
Okay.
And I started working in counseling with kids and then adults in the prison system. And as in New Jersey, they go through, it's funny, every year, every time they change the system, I missed the grandfathering by 1 year. There was a time when you could just go and get your, substance abuse license just because you had been, in the field since 98. I got it at 99. Like it was just, it was just like stuff that I had to do. So when I wanted to be a clinical supervisor, they said before people just got in the year before. I wanted to do it. Now you got to get now you got to get a master's degree. So I get a master's degree. I said, you know what? I've, reflected on my professional life, and I've always been in situations where my coworkers ended up being my supervisor, and they be good workers, but they weren't good supervisors. They weren't good managers of people. So I went and got a MBA in healthcare management, and I'm thinking that this will connect with what I'm doing, and because I'm working in hospitals and detoxes, that kind of thing. So I wanted to be well rounded,
right?
And mind you, this was like almost almost 20 years after I graduated college. So I was like in my late 30s when I went back to school. So I do all that. I hand everything in, and they say, "Oh no, you have to get a degree in counseling or psychology or something like that." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So I go and get another master's, and this is in psychology.
Right. So dual masters in psychology and a master's of business administration. Right.
So, but at this point now, I'm realizing like I like school, and I'm good at it.
Right.
And meanwhile, my marriage is falling apart, and all kind of stuff. But I'm moving through, And as I'm going to school, and I get the psychology degree, and I give it to him, and I'm working, and Michael Vick, that whole story comes up.
The one with the dog.
And I kept always saying, where were the people around him that needed to say, stop this, play football, and then you can do whatever you want after that.
Right. Don't do this dumb shit.
Yeah.
It's gonna be,
yeah. But I know God does what God does, but it made me want to reach out to the young athletes who don't know how to shift from what they come from. Because a lot of times during, working in residential and stuff, we, keep the kids busy. Let them play basketball. Let them play football. And it helped build physical excellence and some character. But you got very talented people that are broken. So they bring that brokenness in along with the entourage that's broken. So how can
We've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen it.
With him, and I remember watching that documentary he did, and he's showing you the house where he's like, my friends were living in the dining room, and these were living here, and and like everybody was taken from him, but nobody was giving, nobody was pouring into him.
Right.
So it motivated me to go for my doctorate in sports psychology. Because I was working with young people, and I wanted to be able to connect, and my dream job is to work with the Eagles, but I wanted to be able to work with athletes as they develop so that they can understand the dynamic
adolescent athletes as they
understand that you can use this to help you, but you also have to have emotional intelligence. You have to understand what your triggers are. You have to understand the things that you have to do to tell yourself no. Because part of being a physical specimen, you see what you're able to do. So then you think you can do anything.
Right.
And that you don't have to be held accountable, and because the people are saying stuff about you, and this,
right.
So then you start to believe your own press.
Your own hype. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Instead of remaining humble, understanding that I was in basketball because my upbringing was bad. Then it was LeBron.
Right.
He motivated me because stuff is starting to come in to help me to see like his story, where his mom is like messing around with his teammates and all kind of stuff because she was, she wasn't too far removed, and he's dragging all that on. So these are the people in my life that I was seeing that motivated me to want to help young people. Right.
And there are, strangely, like I think in my head of, counter examples of people who, actually went on to your Shaquille O'Neals, you know what I mean? Or,
Hurts.
You know what I mean? Like, right, and we're on the other side, clearly made some strong business and other decisions that, but, sometimes if you trace it back, and you hear some of their stories, or at least snippets of their stories, you realize that, some of them come from, firmer backgrounds, you know what I mean? Like, family backgrounds. Michael Jordan, there was a story about his life that came up relatively recently. It was about the interface that he had when he was new with Nike. And man, that movie's banging. Like, it's awesome because it's like, he's going to, Nike corporate right? And Adidas is the big player, right? And clearly he doesn't know his way, how to navigate his way through. You know, he's swimming with sharks, so to speak.
Right.
But some of the strength derived from that is the strength that comes from his family who are sitting in with him, you know, fighting to make sure that he's, you know, well treated.
Right.
And,
right.
you know, turned out that, you know, he's a billionaire now, right? Because of, you know, because of that. So, but I think disproportionately, you know, many of these young athletes, you know, it's a way out. You know what I mean? Kind of like you talked about, you know, graduating, you know, high school early is a way out. And it can be a way out financially, or a way to, you know, to get away to college, or to get away to, you know, pro sports. But to get away from yourself is something quite different.
There you go.
Right? And, you know, and wherever you go, you take yourself with you. You know? So, so now, from a clinical perspective, do you spend more time now working with young athletes, or is it just something that's become part of
Yeah, I haven't been really able. I've had, it's one of those fields that you got to know somebody. And when I got in the field, there's like these little niche organizations, and I tried to connect, and I don't think I marketed myself the way I needed to, and but I also needed to provide a life for myself and my children.
Right.
So I always kind of saw that as my retirement gig or something.
Right.
You know, I was able to meet with some athletes at times, but like one time I went to, I don't know, ATI or something, and it was like a bunch of sports people, and I was thinking to myself, like, this would be a good thing for me to get connected with, to help them to get through the physical, because there's a whole thing on just connecting or being taken away from your team or your sport, and that isolation, and not being able to trust your body again. And like there's a whole psychological thing about that, that they're addressing it now, but when I started, it was new. You know, people just not realizing that, like, there's stuff that they need to address, mind body connection.
It's funny because last year Dean and I, you know, we made a couple Eagles games, right? And there was a point at one of the earlier games, I think it was Eagles Dallas, and there were some kids sitting on a sideline, and they were all holding the same book, and the book was Inner Excellence. And the story was Jalen Hurts and who was it, A.J. Brown? You know, and a couple of them were like all about this book. Right. And then I have a copy of it, and I also listened to the audiobook or whatever, and it's a pretty deep exploration. It's just sports psychology exploration, right? But just the takeaways, you know, I think in the grand scheme of things, the takeaways are that, you know, that the physical aspects of sports being what they are, it's very, very much a mental game. I find that business is the same way, frankly. You know what I mean? The wrestling match is not wrecking myself, you know, based on my perceptions or my fears or my worries or that type of thing. And it's a fight, you know, just to stay in the game and not like either throw in the towel or, you know, make poor decisions based on, you know, my fears or my worries or other types of things. And, you know, and the exploration for me has just been, you know, how deep does the rabbit hole go for the damage that I've experienced in my life? And then also, how do I make the best possible decisions now, utilizing all the tools at my disposal, right? You know, and I was thinking when you got in here, I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like I'm in episode 14 and I've had 3 psychologists, you know what I mean? Like, you know, 3 therapists / you know, 4. Actually, you're my 4th. And I'm in, you know, it's a damn near a quarter of all the people I've had in here. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why do I tend to find myself in that position? And I think maybe at least in part, you know, there's some attractivity that seems to be attractive to me in some way. You know, maybe it's because, you know, in this process, I realize how, you know, ultimately how damaged deep down, you know, I am. And in the process of that exploration, other people, because what I find is every last person who I've had conversations with on this show that, you know, they're also in the field, so to speak, are also trying to unwire their own trauma.
And you have
You know?
to. I mean, that's one of the things that I was taught early on is you have to do your own work.
Right.
Because if you aren't where you need to be, how can you help someone else?
Right.
You know,
Right.
Sometimes you can just be describing the water to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But you have to be able to help them to get to solutions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the only way to do that is doing your own work. And I remember going through trainings, and I went through Gestalt training, and some stuff came out during learning how to do the techniques. We had to go through it ourselves.
Right. What is SALT? Say more. What is
Gestalt.
that? Stalt?
Gestalt.
Gestalt. Okay.
Yeah.
Say more about what that is. For our listeners that don't know anything about it.
And I haven't used it in a while, but you know, they do things, and it's about understanding the feelings and where they came from and addressing. I remember there's this open chair exercise where
Right.
you address a person that is either alive or not,
Right.
and ask them some questions.
Right.
You know, as you're thinking it and you're saying it out loud, you know.
Right.
And that uncle that I told you about, he was sexually inappropriate with me for a while. And I had my grandmother in a chair, and I was like, did you know? Like, and that was a question. I was like, you know, it kind of like unnerved me because I loved this woman, and I never realized that I was kind of angry that you left me with him and this happened to me. You know what I mean? And it was an experience. I don't really want to go into that, but it was an experience that for me, it helped me to understand, like, all right, there's some feelings that I'm sad, mad, or happy. You know, and we can then sprout off for those three basic feelings, right? But it's about identifying in the moment, what is the feeling? Like you said, talking about, I'm feeling some kind of way. I'm happy, mad, or sad. Which one is it? You know, and springing from that. You know, and most of those negative fears are based in fear, right? Fear of losing something, losing control, losing, you know what I mean? Whatever it is.
Or for me, shame.
Which is,
you know,
yeah.
because I'm a Brene Brown guy. I'm down with some Brene, and you know, all that shame research, you know, really helped me get in touch. So a lot of times, you know, I'm angry or I'm fearful. I'm really caught in some, you know, some kind of shame storm in my head that can't really necessarily make sense of it or why.
And that's where, like, I'm also trained in EMDR. You know, this eye rapid movement. And
now, do you do it with the digital thing, or do you do it with?
Actually, I do with the padding. Yeah, the padding out
I
of
couldn't
this.
get down with the. I couldn't get down with the padding at the VA. You know what I mean? They wanted me to do the EMDR, and you know, and my first therapist, he's been, you know, Tim's been gone a couple of years now. He died a couple of years ago. Died right in the middle of the pandemic, but he had the strobe thing set up in the office, and I was like, all right, you know, I mean, he kept telling me like we should do the EMDR thing, and I was like, yeah, whatever. We never got around to it. And then when a couple of years later, after he passed, I got a new therapist, and she was in the EMDR thing. But we were doing things on virtually, and she did the padding thing. And honestly, like, if I could get past the fact that I felt like it was corny, I probably would have been. Me, I'm a technology guy. You know what I'm saying? So I had already seen that there was the digital strobe thing, right? And now I'm hand patting it. I'm like, yo, where's the strobe thing at? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want the real thing. You know? Now I know it works. And the therapist that I see now at the VA, we don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a conversation. But
but a lot of it is about understanding things and changing narratives,
right?
And giving some people some bail on some stuff. You know, that a lot of times, especially when it's with trauma, I've worked with some people that have dissociation and dealing with some stuff where they just totally dissociate from the experience.
Right.
And they...
when you say disassociate, they don't feel like they are connected to the experience or don't remember it, or a combination of both.
Right.
Right.
And it's funny because it's funny when you hear things or someone tells you something and you just want to be like, yo, no, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, don't go there. And if somebody told you that they have a dissociative personality and they've done some things to make you pause, why would you continue on?
So what you're saying is that if you're going to unpack things, do it in a way that ultimately that's in the right environment, in the right situation, in the right circumstance. Don't just unpack it just because you got there to unpack it, because you might unpack something that could hurt.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that happens.
Right.
A lot of therapy experiences, people dump all the stuff, and then you want to help them to sort it out, and then they just drop off because they feel the initial relief of dumping it, and it's like, well, I don't need therapy now. But then they'll come back, and then so there's things that you just get acceptance with. It's I'm only here to help you in the way that you want help. And right. I have no.
Oh, there's a parallel to that to recovery too.
Yeah, but I can't. Yeah, but I can't connect. And sometimes people get, they get the transference and counter-transference stuff going on, but it's just like, I'm just here to give you, when I worked with addicts primarily, I was like, I'm just making you an informed consumer. Mm-hmm. You can either go back out and use, but now you know what it's doing to your brain. You got some identification of why you're doing it, and you either continue using or you do something different. But my job is to just give you the education and know that you have a choice. But once you stopped, now you have a choice. When you're caught up, it's hard to make that choice.
Truth.
Because it's either physical domination, where it's like, I'm afraid to feel like that, or that pain of withdrawal. You know what I mean?
Or the pain of who I am.
Exactly.
Or the pain of my trauma.
Just the fear of the fear of the unknown. Because I know what this does. I get high, I stop feeling.
Well, let me ask a few questions. So we're both in recovery, right? You said that it was fun in the beginning till it wasn't anymore. You use the term social, right? You know what I mean? And I think many of us start that way. I think some, at least for me, was because I didn't really have the ability to navigate my way socially. So one, it was something that numbed me, right? And then the other thing was a way to garner some level of acceptance, because here's where people that were doing this thing, and I could do this thing too, so I could be part of this group of these people that were doing this thing. And I did it well. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I could drink a man under
I
the
had
table.
triple doctorate in getting high. You know what I mean? Like I had 30 years doing that. I was good at that. But I guess maybe. So my thought is, because you talked about that time where you had been clean for a long time and you had achieved the things and you had the stuff, right? But you were in pain and didn't want to be here anymore because of it, right? Somebody, my sponsor talks about all the time that that gifts of desperation keep on coming, right? You know what I mean? And there's signals that more change, more growth need to happen, right? So what was the so you've got your first gift of desperation, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to say the first one, because we go through gifts of desperation when we're high. You know what I mean? But, what was the threshold edge where you decided enough was enough and I'm done, I'm not going to use anymore? Like, what was that like for you?
It's funny. I was mainly a drinker. Okay. And that relationship with my mother breeded a contempt for weed. When I found myself smoking weed, I'm never doing that because she does it, and that, waking up in the middle of the night with Barry White and her smoking weed and, her friends downstairs partying, and, all, that was what my perception of weed was. It was like that was the one thing I wasn't going to do until I'm sitting around and I'm smoking weed with my friends on the back porch, my friend's husband's on the back porch. And I'm saying to myself, like, you know, first it's, you know, it's cool, you know, and then I'm thinking, when did drinking not be enough? And then it was getting to a place, because financially I had become unmanageable, and I'm drinking to not feel that, to seeing myself. I literally can, till this day, can still see. I was like a bird's eye view of myself, scraping through my car looking for change just so that I could buy a 40. So that I could drink to walk into my house. And seeing myself drinking so that I could go get drunk, because I didn't want other people to know how much I was really drinking. You know, so it was that point where I'm thinking, my God, how did you turn into this person? You know, and how emotionally jacked up I was. You know, because because I had everything I wanted and I still was not happy and feeling ungrateful about that. You know, joking, you know, it's funny how you'll joke about stuff that's really not cute. It's not, you know, Hat Friday because you had to be at happy hour on Thursday night. And you were so messed up, all you could do is put a hat on your head and show up for work. Like, and that was a thing. And it
Hat
was
Friday.
Hat Friday.
Right?
You know, when I had it bad because I had a hat on because I couldn't even get my hair together. Like that was, and it was that kind of thing that I was like, this is crazy. And I lost a job because of my drinking, because I just could not get myself together. And I didn't realize how overwhelmed I was. Like I said, doing too much. I was working in Plymouth Meeting, living in Williamstown, driving all day to go to these foster homes and see these kids. And like, I was just overwhelmed, you know, and not identifying it. So I just numbed that feeling, went on with my day and, you know, and did it all over again and tried so hard. And I kept everything together to where my husband at the time was looking at me. He's like, you went to meetings? I'm like, yeah. Because I had gone to a training somewhere and they had recovery meetings there. And I hadn't started. I was actually working toward getting my certification.
Now, did you have to keep it down low key because of your background, that you were also, you know, going to meetings and then you were, you know?
Well, once you get in the field, everybody that's working there is
Most
probably
people,
in
yeah,
recovery.
isn't it? It's
So
weird. Everybody I know who's...
And it becomes a very comforting environment to be in, because if you're going through something, you can pull somebody that you know and that you're working with, and you can talk and, you know, that kind of thing. And because I realized that once my career started to grow in other areas, I didn't have that anymore. That I was working with earth people and they just didn't get it. So I had to hold myself together until, you know what I mean? I'm working in probation and parole.
Right.
And I'm in the court systems. I'm in the prison system. You know, even though I was the director of a therapeutic community, a lot of the people that I was working with wasn't in recovery. There was some that were, and then some that weren't. And then,
now you think needed recovery, clearly. I'm sure that was common, but didn't have any, right.
The field draws people who are well-meaning people who had a family member who was, or, you know, they have a religious belief that they want to help people, and this is the same as us. Right. So, but then, you know, working in a court system where everybody is dog eat dog, and you get these certain perceptions of people, you know, they're defendants, they're not people to them. And I'm looking at it and I'm in this. So you're trying to marry treatment and legal system together, you know, and that was my part of it. I was a task evaluator in Trenton. So that was, and again, emotionally, I started distinct myself because I was working 2 jobs. And so now I'm not making the meetings the way I need to. And then I meet my now husband, and we moved to Delaware. I'm commuting from Trenton to Delaware every day. And in between that, I'm working another job where I'm going and doing therapy in people's homes, you know, which was actually one of the most awesome experience. Because I've worked, we said, okay, here's my kid, fix it. But now I'm doing it in the home, and I'm touching everybody. I'm doing family therapy because I can work with the kid, give them tools and things to do. But if the family isn't buying in, or the family is not really working to help the kid to be successful, it's like taking a bath and putting on dirty clothes. You know, I'm cleaning the kid up, but I'm just throwing them back into the, you know, to the system. So the family system will be messed up, but the kid will be okay for a little while until, you know, they can't. And then they just go back to doing what they're doing. And then people say, well, therapy doesn't work. Well, it's a lot that you have to do.
I remember one time a therapist for one of my children saying that, you know what I mean, like 99 times out of 100, you know, the problem here isn't the child, it's the parent. And so I can understand how it would be much more effective if you could, one, assess the environment, right? So, you know, because, you know, if you're getting it from just the child, you're getting it secondhand, you're getting the result, so to speak, rather than from the source.
And in some of those situations, they weren't receptive. I had been in houses. It's funny. I had been in houses from the penthouse to the projects, and a lot of the perceptions were the same. But I was in the penthouse with those parents, and they're like, yeah, and then they're telling me half the truth, and so I can't help you fix something I don't know because you're too busy sheltering because you want to keep up your image. Or I'm in the projects, and it's this spent out grandmother who's just trying to do the best they can to take care of their grandchild, and the parent is the issue, but we can't bring the parent in. We can't, you know. So it's a lot that comes in with. I had to step away from kids for a little while because the system in our society that works with kids is so flawed. Because things that they need they can't get, you know, and everything is we got to try everything possible before we put the person where they really need to be. Instead of let's put them where they need to be.
You say that we need to try everything possible. Is the trying everything possible because of the financial oversight associated with? In other words, they have to reach they have to go through certain gates to get to the one that, instead of just do not pass go, do not collect $200, this kid needs to be in, you know, this more substantial environment or more oversight or more treatment or whatever. But you've got to go through all these lower steps, and meanwhile the kid's suffering.
My daughter is experiencing that now. It wasn't up until my grandson had to be a certain age before I saw that he had, you know, he was on the spectrum. But we can't diagnose him as being on the spectrum until he's a certain age. Okay. So, but you've given him this laundry list of diagnoses. He's ODD, he's this, he's that. No, people aren't speaking his language so that he can understand. So he's flipping out. So it's, you know, he had speech delays and things like that. So it was a lot until, you know, he's getting put out of this poor little thing has been put out of like 4 or 5 daycares. Right. And he's 5. Right. Because he's a sweet kid, but until whatever clicks in his head doesn't, you know, then he's like combative and I'm not going. But then you got 2 people with 12 kids.
Yeah, they don't have the time.
They don't have the resources.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, now he's in a program where he's getting what he needs, you know. And it's still jacked up because it's only certain parts of the day, and then they're short-staffed. So if his person doesn't come that day, guess what? My daughter has nowhere to put him. So he just stays home. And so that's, you know.
I'm assuming you find it frustrating that this is the state of the.
And even she's got another son. He was sexually assaulted by his older brother. All they have is Rockford and a whole bunch of stuff that they give him afterwards that was successful. And guess what they did? Oh, he's doing better. We're stopping it. You know what I mean? There was no titration. There was no, and it just, and she's a single mom trying to do this. And even as a professional, I try to help. As a mother, I tried to help. But then I realized that I had to step back and have her navigate herself in these situations, because if I continue on, then you won't do it. And even if the stuff that I'm telling you to do, you don't do it, I can't get frustrated. I can't do, and it's hard.
So here you are, with your background, you know what I mean? Like, still experiencing it in your own family, frankly.
Yeah, I'm not exempt. Nobody is. I don't know too many therapists that have this perfect life that, this or that, No. You have been through something to help somebody.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like it's a prerequisite requirement.
Right.
Right.
And
you almost have to.
And I got tired, like I said, of it's funny because I came up through the trenches.
Right.
And I would have an intern working with me, and she's getting her master's in social work. She graduates and comes back, and she's my supervisor. That motivated me to want to go back to school.
Right.
And I used to call them the do-gooders, and like I left at one place because it just didn't make sense to me. You're owning a vineyard. You and your husband are buying a vineyard, and you're a director of a drug treatment center.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend of mine who's, he's been quote unquote clean a long time, and, they did a veteran investment group and, and invested in marijuana dispensaries. And I'm like, I remember my wife saying, like, how the fuck is he doing that? And I was like, right? You know what I mean? Like, to me, I can be exposed to it. You know what I mean? Like, I could sit at a bar and eat a salad, right? You know what I mean? And not feel like, or, I don't really feel pressure associated with drugs or alcohol like that. But participating in is different. You know what I mean? Like,
And to me, it's a mission-led career. I have a mission.
Right.
I'm here to help people heal.
Right.
I can't turn around and go and say, okay, well, like I want to go ahead. I had a hard time with Suboxone when it came on board.
Sure.
And that whole challenge that are they clean or they're not clean? Are they? And I'm like, no, they're still in treatment.
Right.
And eventually treatment has to end. There is a beginning and an end to treatment. Recovery is ongoing.
Right.
At some point, your goal is to get off this drug so that you can live without it and not be dependent on a chemical to keep you off of a chemical. So I had a hard time with that early on in my career. I got some levels of acceptance when it is done properly, because with any system, it's abused and manipulated. Because if I say that I'm doing 10 bundles a day, and so you're going to give me a certain amount. Right. And then I'm standing. Right. That used to blow my mind. Riding through Camden, New Jersey, and seeing people literally like statues, like at a 45-degree angle, and I'm standing there, I'm thinking, are they going to fall? But they're right there. And it blew my mind to see that. And I'm, but then it was like the whole thing of people, like they're trying to do it. And I seen people in meetings, they're like, I'm trying to get it together. I mean, craziness with different things where people that came out of prison and they say, oh, you don't have that much time clean. It's from the time you got released. You can use drugs in prison.
Sure.
So if they made a conscious decision to not use while they were in prison, guess what? They're clean. Now the recovery process may be something different, but they're clean.
I think the challenge that I've experienced, because I've gone through this last probably 5 years has been really difficult for me trying to, because I'm a purist when it comes to, the literature, et cetera. Also, that, weaning process, or, what I mean? Like, substance abuse treatment that includes other substances isn't part of my story. But I can also come from a position of judgment rather than a position of love. And also an interest in protecting a fellowship that basically, has a zero tolerance. I'm not going to say it's not tolerance. What I'll say is very clear about what is clean and what is not, right? Mm-hmm. So, but people come out of treatment, come out of organized treatment facilities, et cetera, where it's success is about coming off of the recreational substance rather than being free of all substances. And they're also told to attend meetings, right? So when they come to meetings, and then when they arrive at a meeting, they're basically told that, we really start celebrating once we are not participating in any substance use, including the substances that are used to treat the treatments that you're on. And the challenge that I've been dealt with is that suddenly, because, we are not speaking the language that they anticipated because it wasn't what they were set up for coming out of treatment, that now we are the enemy, right? Because now, what I mean? Like, what do you mean I can't get up there and, collect for clean time? Or, what do you mean I can't speak from behind the table? You know what I mean? Like, and you go, well, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Like, here, we're clear about what is and what is not. And, I was part of a home group that, was ostracized. They passed around flyers trying to say that we should be shut down. Right? You know what I mean? Because we had a few people who, came out in conversations that were still on, substance abuse treatment therapy. Like they were on, medically assisted, MAT, and we said, well, we certainly want you to still come, and we certainly want you to participate in your recovery, and we certainly want you to eventually, accumulate some clean time so that you could celebrate. And they didn't like that. So they left and went to meetings where that wasn't, where they weren't enforcing that at that level. And then they started championing that the meeting that we were in shouldn't exist anymore.
We're not saying that you can't be a member, because all you have is the desire to stop using. We're just saying you haven't stopped using yet.
100% in agreement. The challenge ultimately becomes that if you're still holding on that hard to medically assisted treatment, it's like holding on to the drug. Your brain don't know the damn difference, right? So, you have two different choices. You have the choice to see clearly, that we're really just trying to help you. And then you have the other choice, which is to, to basically say, well, that's full of shit, because that ain't what you know what I mean? And I actually had an interesting conversation last year in the summer with, and these have been some things that I've experienced over the last few years that have kind of helped me readjust and maybe stop talking about it as much. You know what I mean? Like I sat down with a friend of mine who owns a bunch of recovery houses. And, we were down the shore, and we sat down with a gentleman who was part of a group of organizations, a nonprofit that were trying to fund recovery houses. And during the conversation, it came out that, that they would only fund recovery houses that had medically assisted treatment. If it was a non-MAT house, they weren't interested in assisting the funding. And this gentleman had lost his son to overdose. And I thought to myself, okay, you can't graft recovery on a dead body, right? And emotionally tied to that, I can see why you take that position. But I was asked during that conversation, you know what I mean, like what my opinion was. and realized that when I injected my opinion had no business in the conversation. This was a conversation about business, right? And my thoughts on recovery, could stand to undermine what ultimately could be something good. If a recovery house is created, right, to give people who are on medically assisted treatment a place to stay while they find their path, who am I to run interference on that based on my perceptions of what is clean and not? You know what I mean? Like, a girl who was part of, our home group at one point, who was also, she was in the trenches, like running around with Narcan in Kensington, bringing people back to life or whatever. And she had been on medically assisted treatment until she had come off of it to accumulate clean time. But I think at some point through that whole process, we were trying to navigate our way through it, felt, a certain kind of way, right? She felt that, maybe our positioning wasn't kind, or I don't really know, but she chose to eventually either go to another fellowship or not come to our group anymore or whatever. And I just realized that, I cringe when I'm put in that position. You know what I mean? When somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I've been, I'm on medically assisted treatment. I want to celebrate, you know what I mean? I want to speak for my anniversary. I want this, I want that. And I'm like, here we go again. Because my thought process is that, and, for what it's worth, I'd really love the world to change to meet my needs, so it would be easier for me. That would be fucking great, right? but that process of transitioning from medically assisted treatment to non, I'm not necessarily sure that whole process is sold from the medically assisted treatment on through. No, I think that
I've been on the other end.
right.
It is because it's a money making thing.
Boom, there it is, right? Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because we don't want to get from my soapbox, but big pharma.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things.
Boy, we just had a conversation about this last week on this show about for some other guys who don't have a background in this, and we postulated that was what was going on, but you know what I mean? Like, we can actually hear it from, somebody who's experienced it on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's, it is a nonprofit. I mean, it is a for-profit
right.
System.
Right.
I had got in a job offer in Maryland, but it was just too far for me to commute. And they're like, because I said to them, I said, is there a goal for them to titrate from, either the methadone or the Suboxone? And they were like, well, I mean, not really.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh, that's not where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what my philosophy in treatment is.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to be free.
Right.
Because if you're on a medication that's, distancing you from your reality,
right,
just so that you aren't experiencing withdrawal from something, like your focus is not to feel, right? Like if I'm taking a drug to not feel the pain of withdrawal, it's also going to have me in a place where I'm not feeling anything. Because now I'm not just taking that, I'm taking Xanax to manage the anxiety or manage the perceived anxiety.
And it's the reason why the recovery process cannot begin until you're clean, because it's only pain that causes you to seek, right? To dig deep, right? To really look at yourself. And that's a painful experience. And frankly, I don't think you get the same result out of it if in whatever way you're numb to it. And you know what? Honestly, I have a friend of mine that I buried 2.5 years ago. He was on SSRIs, right? And he worked through the process, 12 steps, and then went and used and died. And, so painful. I loved him, man. We used together for years, and he got clean a year after I did. But he didn't take this thing literally like I do, right? And he was also, his older brother was even closer to me than he was. I mean, we were friends going back to when we were teenagers, and his older brother died from brain cancer. He had glioblastoma, and when he passed, of course, his younger brother, who was close to me, was in pain, and the doctor put him on SSRIs, and then he was still using a bunch of other stuff, and that's like uncorking the beast for real with SSRIs. And then when he started working the step process, right? You know what I mean? Like, you could just tell in the writing, like, how everything was just wonderful. Like, you could just tell, like, my step process was a painful, deep exploration. And his seemed so much more superficial. And I didn't want to sidestep it as, like, hey, this is where we're at. Let's do this. But I often felt like, through the process, like, are you getting the same thing that I did? Right? You know what I mean? Is this, and again, like, we don't comment on outside issues, you know what I mean? Like, at least in the recovery, inside the rooms, you know what I mean? And I've, over time, wrestled between having an opinion and not.
Right.
And that's hard, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you want what's best for people, right? But then again, you don't want to overstep bounds either. I'm not a professional, right? You know what I mean? Like, so, and I often wonder whether, in not being an interventionist, whether or not I did more harm than good. Whether, if I would have drew a line in the sand over that, would he have ostracized me or gotten away from me? And I think, at least in a way, towards the latter part of his recovery, he moved to California, got quote unquote California clean, you know what I mean? All this, so he's smoking chronic, you know what I mean? Like, all that, which is just basically just opening the beast back up again, letting him out. And, but I just felt to myself, like, did I do him a disservice because I didn't stick to my guns more? And then, frankly, where is sticking to my guns exactly when it comes to, a medical treatment for, for depression or anxiety or any of those other things? Like,
Yeah, because it is, addiction is a disease. Mental illness is a disease, and it is something that needs to be managed. And we manage addiction through the recovery process. But it's through, it's stages to it. You know what I mean? But the step work also, I can't judge what you're writing now is hopefully not what you're going to write the next time you cycle through the steps.
Right.
Because we can intellectualize some things. And like, I know for me, because I'm an intellectual person, I leave that at the door.
Right.
I want to be as dumb as possible. I don't want to sound good when I'm in a meeting because I want to just talk about my feelings and get a different perspective on them. I'm not trying to sound good. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I just want to get this feeling off of me.
Right.
So that I can go from my primitive brain to my cognitive brain by giving my thoughts life with words in order for me to see and hear that, wow, that's what I think. And whoa, that's not going to work. But me just being able to say it is what...
Speaking the subconscious.
Yeah.
Right.
Because everything's a good idea where you're feeling. If you can't rationalize and get to the place where you're like, oh, yeah, you could do that, but you're going to jail. Or, but, you know what I'm saying? There's always a but after that. Yeah, I want to go and beat somebody. I never understood the thing of, like, somebody was saying, I just need to hit this guy. I need to fight this guy. To what end?
Right.
To what end?
Right.
You either beat him and win or beat him and lose. But what is physically fighting this person going to change?
Right.
You have anger. You need to address the anger. But beating that person up,
right.
That's a primitive act.
Right. Wow.
I have to look at why am I angry at that person and change my perception of it.
Makes me think a lot about, like, it's funny how, we do this show and, and we explore and we go down some different paths and you come out with a different understanding of somebody than you went in. But the more interesting thing for me is ultimately being that I come out with a deeper understanding of me than when I went in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know what I mean? Like this kind of reframes, at least in part, my observances of you in recovery. You know what I mean? Because I'm taking a superficial view without a deeper understanding about, what your background is at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And also helps me to frame my viewpoint, my behavior, right? Because, there's been times where I'm like, are y'all motherfuckers seeing this shit? You know what I mean? Like, are you not seeing what I'm seeing? You know what I mean? Like, when it comes to things like, medically assisted treatment or, you know what I mean? Like, or, the anonymity that we enjoy, you know what I mean? That, I said to Spence at one point, I was like, I'm just another addict. And he was like, you ain't just. He said, you're another addict, but there ain't no just about you. You have value. You bring things to the table. You're not just anything. Mm-hmm. You're an addict, yes, but you're not just. And trying to navigate my way through those two different thought processes at the same time. You know what I mean? Not seeing myself less than or better than anybody else.
Right.
But also realizing that even though I hang my shingle of my profession or who I am or whatever at the door, does not bring that, my viewpoint, my experience, my effort, et cetera, doesn't bring a certain level of value to the conversation, to the room, et cetera. And I watch how you carry yourself with humility. Right? I see it, and that's attractive to me. You know what I mean? Because, well, what I will say is certainly unattractive to me is the people that don't. Right? You know what I mean? I find a certain level of repulsion to that. You know what I mean? Like, so we all have egos we're dancing with from time to time.
And I'm always reminded, if I'm not humble, I'll be humiliated. And Grandma said, don't be loud and wrong. Right?
Don't be loud. Yo, Dean, write that down. Don't be loud and wrong. Boy, if that ain't wisdom, and he's writing it down right now. Don't be loud and wrong. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow. So I guess the next thought is, right? So do you have a vision for where you go from here, professionally, personally? Like, or do you, what are your thoughts about?
I'm at that wind down stage for myself.
Right.
I want to transition out of the school. I would love to just do virtual and in-person counseling. My husband and I have a goal to get a permanent trailer and find some land somewhere and just pitch a tent, and that's where we are, because we have a travel trailer. So we've been we've been living the dream, going, and it came out of COVID. It was one of the craziest things, because we were talking about like wanting to travel across country, and we were like, well, we could go and maybe try to get some bed and breakfasts and go that route, and then we start thinking sleeping in somebody else's bed, and we don't know what so, and he's one of them, I want to get off the grid, kind of people. So in conversation, somebody sold us a travel trailer that is pretty much in mint condition for little to no money. And we've been doing a little traveling and just loving that community of like that RV community, and going in and just like kind of simplifying, and just it's such a difference from what I came from and what I'm living in now. And I'm like in the process of purging things now. I'm losing weight, so I'm getting rid of all these clothes, and like I'm picking up stuff with tags still on it, and I'm just like, it's got to go in the bag. Because where's any of this stuff gonna take me? You know what I mean? I can only wear it one thing at a time. In summertime, I may wear 3 different outfits because you sweat, but you know what I mean? But it's like, I know where this stuff came from. It's just kind of like getting rid of like my using stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, I bought that stuff because I was using. because I wanted to not feel. How many black pairs of pants do you need? How many, you know what I mean? I've seen where I bought the same shoe twice. It's a whole bunch of things. Just because I'm just caught up in that moment, I don't want to feel. So I'm pushing, checkout. Filling
I
up.
certainly have a stack of shit like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like trust and belief. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like the only thing more dangerous is hitting checkout when you have the resources to be able to hit checkout.
Exactly.
That's when you start really stacking.
Exactly.
Right? And I got
Mm-hmm.
plenty of stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it seems like the recognition that you just bought that previous thing that you didn't even need and didn't even use is like a movable target to the next thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and you leave a trail of all these things you didn't even need and you didn't even use that are still damn near new that you have.
Mm-hmm.
That, so it's still a work in progress for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And I just it's funny. People are like, well, why don't you take pictures of it and sell it? I was like, I'd rather bless somebody with it.
Right.
I'd rather give it to somebody who's going to use it and need it.
Right.
Not just, try to recoup from, because then what's going to happen is I'm going to keep the stuff around and I'm not going to change.
Well, it's funny because a lot of where I'm at right now is trying to figure out what's next.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I've been interfacing and surrounding myself with other people who are in a transitioning phase to try and imagine what my transitioning phase looks like to what's next, right? I've been doing the same thing for, many years. And trying to envision what's next. So what's inspiring to me is hearing other people's. That's why I asked, you know what I mean? Like, what's your vision for what's next? Because Dean will tell you, most of my friends will tell you, that I'm a person that's generally considered the one with the vision, right? But here I'm blank, right? You know what I mean? Do I retire? Do I build something else? Where do we go next? What do we do next? And, and hearing conversations, having conversations like this, I hear things that are reminiscent of my youth. We camped when I was a kid. So we went to places where there was like this, community away from the community. And it kind of like broke things and then reestablished things where they congealed in a different way. And you had all these people that were from different areas or whatever. And they were all like, my parents stayed at a place up in the mountains, up in the Poconos that we used to go to as a kid. And when we went up there, they had the Up at the Hill gang. And that was like their whole posse that was up there. And they deep fried turkeys and, you know what I mean? And they, as kids, we went to the pool or whatever and they did fireworks and, they had like little get-togethers and we burned a fire at night and, you know what I mean? And those are some of the, fondest times. And they were also times that weren't threaded with means. And that's strange for me because it's like today, if it's not big balling, why are we doing it? Right. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Like if I look back at when I was happiest, the balling wasn't even part of the game. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I mean, we were doing okay, but it was not. It was not lifestyles of the rich and famous by any stretch.
It seems sometimes we did more with less.
Yeah. And we respected the less. You know what I mean? Like that saying that it's the little things. You know what I mean? It's amazing how the big things get in the way of the little things.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm in such a blessed position that I'm married to my best friend. And I love spending time with him and can't see my life doing anything else. And that is, he always used to say, like, I just want to get he's a minimalist and he's the tiny house and all of that. And I'm like, well, honey, I don't think I'm there.
Right.
But I'm getting there. I'm at a place where now I see the vision and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with and our goal is to get debt free and to have our business be self-sustaining so he doesn't have to cut hair anymore and or he'll do a day or two or whatever, but just be able to just maintain and enjoy the moments that we have left, not with a whole bunch of chaos and things and drama. Because with things comes more problems, you know.
Yeah.
Like
Everything I have that I buy, I have to maintain.
Yeah. I have this huge house that I've been blessed with, and I did a thing where I went on Google and got pictures of all of the houses that I grew up in and lived in, and to where I'm at now. And like I just started crying. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I'm so grateful for where I've come. And there was a time a couple years ago when, because I was so caught up in the grind and the hustle, that I sat there one day and I said, I need to look up, because I'm actually where I've been trying to get to all my life. And I have to acknowledge the fact that this is happiness for me.
Right.
You know, I feel like I'm in the mall and it's like, you are here. Like I've been trying to enjoy the fruits of my labor over the past couple of years, not just work to try to keep it, work to try to get it better,
Protect it.
But just,
I get caught a lot in the protect it. I work trying to protect it.
yeah. And I learned when I had to file bankruptcy that like it's a certain amount of freedom and everything must go. I sat there and watched them back up and go get those 2 cars that I had, and I felt this relief. You know, there's certain, you know, I don't have to pay a car payment anymore. I don't have to, you know what I mean? Where it was like all this stuff, and I realized all these resources that I had to go to because I liked something, because it made me feel good at that time, and or it was a goal that I had. I had a goal to have a convertible, so I had the convertible Lexus. I always liked trucks, so I always had 2 cars. I had got to a point where I was having 2 cars. I had the truck and I had the car. You know, then it was, you know, it was too much. You know, then my husband, he was like, well, I'll take this one and you go ahead and get what you want, you know. And then it's just like, I still have 2 cars, but I gave one to my daughter, you know. But it was just a matter of me realizing, all right, what is it that you really want? Like, I got the car that I wanted, and this is, you know, I'm like, okay, I think this is it. I think that I have bought just about every car that they make, except BMW, and like, I really don't want one. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I'm to a place where I'm ready to go and get one of those electrical trikes. Because I work right now 6 miles from work. Get on my little, you know, you see the old ladies. Because I don't need it anymore. The stuff doesn't make me. It doesn't even feel good. Like my car, it's fun to drive. I love it. You know, and that's why I got it. You know, but there's, you know, it's a gasaholic.
Truth.
So my mind now is like, should I go get one of them electric cars and still have that? And I'm like, no. Get this. You'll be able to, you know, drive through the zombie apocalypse if you have to. You know, and be okay. You know. So I just want to be okay now. I feel good. I feel at peace in the moment. You know, a couple days ago I was overwhelmed. And I had to step back and look at why. I always have to find the answer why. At that time it was because I wasn't taking my medication right. And my cheese was sliding off my cracker a little bit.
I say that all the time, by the way, just so you know. I bit your shit. My cheese sliding off my cracker from time to time. I say that once in a while. I'm like, I feel like my cheese sliding off my cracker because it's Aminah.
Yeah, but I'm grateful for, and I got that from Green Mile.
Oh yeah, is that where it's from? I love that movie. I didn't realize that was in there. Yeah, I love Green Mile.
But it was, you know, it's now just all right. I was able to reach out to my husband. Who he's clean and he was in recovery through Narcotics Anonymous, but he chose his religion and it was enough for him. And it still is, you know. But I know for me it's not.
Right.
It's not enough. I tried it. It wasn't enough. So I had to come back to meetings. And
What's that old saying? There's more than one way to the top of the mountain.
exactly.
And I've had to learn that because I was so,
Mm-hmm.
in the interest of purity,
Yeah.
you can become so much of a purist that you can't respect others that are doing things different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes from in the beginning, you realize your life's in danger, so you have to take things as literally as you possibly can
Mm-hmm.
because your life's in danger. So it's like I can't afford to entertain. There might be anything other than this way I'm doing because there's the Kool-Aid and I need to guzzle it.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually the grace that comes with time is realizing that there are many ways to the top of the mountain. And, just because I'm doing it the way I'm doing it doesn't necessarily mean you need to do it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to ask me how I do it, I can share that with you. But, I'm not here. I am not the professor or the teacher. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a professional
Mm-hmm.
addict. I'm just, just here to, to be the example of, right? And if other people find that attractive and want to find out,
Mm-hmm.
if you want what I have, do what I do and you'll get what I have,
No.
and then other than that, just allowing other people the dignity and grace. How far be it for me to interrupt somebody on their journey?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a fucking killer conversation. Holy shit. This was awesome.
Uh-huh.
This was
I
awesome.
loved it. I loved
Yeah,
it.
this was awesome.
So it's always good. That's one of the things that you find that I'm really quiet because I'm not a nonsense talker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like gossip. I don't like, it's funny. I built this oasis to enjoy with people.
You're
And
going to lose power?
I don't know.
Mm.
The light that's going.
What's that?
I think it's the light that's going.
Is it the light that's going?
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Felt
if
like
maybe it
everything
was-
kind of
yeah.
flickered there for a second. That
Yeah,
was
I don't know
weird.
if it was thunder or something. I don't know if we do for a storm.
You know what I'm do just in case? I'm on rat because I think we did. How long are we in, son?
I don't know if it says so on the calendar.
61:32. Yeah, perfect. It's perfect time.
Yeah.
So, fantastic conversation, Aminah.
Definitely.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, this was fantastic.
I'm flattered that you would take the time to want to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Oh, it was
to get to
well
know me.
worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it. You know what I mean? And just like as I said before, I come away when I see you now.
Mm-hmm.
I see you different in a good way.
Yeah. Oh,
You
that's
know,
awesome.
I-
I've always viewed you as awesome.
Hmm. Well, thank you for your service.
Mm,
Thank you for your service to, the process,
Mm-hmm.
and then also thank you for your service to the community, to others.
Thank you.
I appreciate you,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your, your love and support and your warmth. You make people feel welcome.
Thank you.
One hell of a cook, by the way. I said to her a couple weeks ago, I was like, listen, you know what I mean? Like you could have been the caterer, you know what I mean? Yeah, catering business, because make some shrimp and grits off the hook, man. Fantastic. So, but Aminah Yusuf, Dr. Yusuf, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Thank you.
Dancing on a Volcano, season 2, more episodes coming.
There you go.
Come check us out. You know what I mean? So, thank you, Aminah.
All
Love
right.
you, sweetheart.
Love you too.
Awesome. Dancing on a Volcano. That's it. That was what was up.